We do not want the Church of the Living God to ever become a religious center. We want it to always be about a living God in a living relationship, and generations that have felt the touch of His hand and felt the breeze of His breath in their face, and have words spoken over them that will battle the temptations of the enemy and lead them, when they get off course, back to the right path. Our immediate belief is that in the next 5 years that we're going to become completely debt-free. We know that it is going to be through the giving of God's people and by the favor of God. We actually have a little over 9 years of payments left, but we believe that God somehow, some way is going to bring in revenue to pay off this ministry, and that as we go into the future, that God will give us great revenue, that we may not be a ministry of debt, but a ministry of financial liberty to do what God has called us to do. For the first 25 years has been addition.
Welcome, Church of the Living God. Happy Debt Freedom Sunday. We're so glad you're here with us today to celebrate this landmark event in the history of our church. Today we've come together not just to have service, but to celebrate the faithfulness of God, His faithfulness to His promises and to His Word. I don't know if you know it or not, but this church began 35 years ago in 1990 when 4 families came together and purchased the old church building at 114 Franklin Avenue for $150,000 in 1990's money. Apostle Hall and our family came here in the fall of 1991, and the Lord continued to show His faithfulness and move powerfully in our services and in bringing on-time word for the church. Over the years, the church grew despite tribulation or struggle or even blessing. And in 1998, the opportunity arose to purchase a home behind the church on the corner of Fairview and Ashland Avenue. I've told this story many times before, but we had a business meeting planned Sunday after a revival with a powerful man of God named Prophet Mosley. While my dad was giving the announcement in the service, Prophet Mosley stood up and declared, "The Lord has already given you all 3 houses." Admittedly, we rejoiced in that moment with some trepidation, but it was not long after, when we had our meeting, met with the sellers, that we were able to shift the opportunity to purchasing not 1, but all 3 houses on the northern end of Ashland Avenue. Those 3 properties are where you sit right now. After months of laboring and witnessing construction on the site, we were able to dedicate and move into our new sanctuary in October of 1999. That commitment to grow into the house that God had called COLG to be cost us an additional $653,974.42. It required great collaboration and faith from people, and it required a big God to do big things. And in the years since, we have experienced mighty moves of God, amazing miracles, untold healings, and wondrous times in the presence of the Lord around these altars. In 2004, when the congregation was at its height of growth, we took on an additional $400,000 to purchase 12.3 acres at 1203 Irvin Road, about a half mile down the road, to plan for the larger church. We dedicated that property under a vision of impacting families in Winchester and Clark County. But I want you to understand and know that we have not given up on the vision of the church of 2000. I still have the blueprints and the picture of it in my office. By God's grace, we will build it in His timing at His perfect location. We have been blessed by the Lord that in our season of grief and transition, that He called us to run with the vision to impact our region and the world one person at a time for Jesus Christ. He knew that we would need to be debt-free to move into the future that He spoke to Apostle Hall those years ago. He knew how to get us out of debt, and He knew when to get us out of debt. That 12.3 acres was transformed from an asset to a blessing just over 2 weeks ago when we were able to close on the sale of that land for $600,000. That money was more than enough to pay off our debts completely. The church owned that land, the properties here on Franklin and Ashland Avenues, as well as a house on Franklin Avenue that we rent. All of it is completely paid off. God in His goodness graced us the opportunity to turn a corner, to move into a new era. And I believe this era to be one of the multiplication that was prophesied to us. I believe that we are entering into an unprecedented season of giving and generosity, of power and authority. We were generous in our season of debt. We sent tens of thousands of dollars every year all over the nation and all over the world. We supported orphans in Haiti. We built 4 churches in India with the Assemblies of Believers churches. We supported God's work in Kenya, Africa with Pastor Ken Shaku. We sent multiple missions teams and equipment to Ethiopia for Joshua campaign. There we saw 70,000+ salvations. We've supported Native American missions here in the U.S., prison ministries, outreach efforts in our community. We've planted 2 churches. We've continued to raise up sons and daughters, and we've passed the baton to the next generation. We did all of that by the grace of God while under the weight of debt. So now, what can God do through us now that we are in a season of freedom from debt? I don't know what countries we'll yet visit or where we'll send mission teams. I don't know how many salvations, healings, deliverances, miracles, who all will meet as God changes lives. I don't know how many marriages and families can be restored. I don't know how many generations will be saved and discipled. As I've said, there are things that I want God to do, but I'm telling you, eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of COLG what God has prepared for those that love Him. Let us celebrate this day. Let us mark it as a memorial, not only to the decades of faithful givers, which we are grateful for, but to the decades of a faithful God, a God whose promises still stand, a God who never fails His own word. Let's mark it today and remember this moment, where we were and how we celebrated the goodness of God toward Church of the Living God. Let's celebrate.
The second 25 years will be multiplication, and that is my vision for the future.